friends, and welcome to another episode of Ghouls Night In, your cozy chat show with your best ghoul friends. I'm Penny Snark,
And I'm Midge Munster.
and we're gonna get a little bit scary today, in my opinion, at least.
Yes, I'm going to talk about some real life fears, it sounds like.
Yes. So our topic today is thalassophobia, which, if you did not know, is the fear of dark water, deep water, the ocean. It's kind of a catch-all term.
Give me that word one more time, because what?
So it is thalassophobia
Thalassophobia.
with
Okay.
from the Greek, as they do, with thalassa meaning sea and obviously phobos meaning fear.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is something that every article that I read was very specific to note that it is a completely, distinct fear from aquaphobia, which is just a general fear of like water.
Mm-hmm.
And this is specifically about kind of like
Like
deep,
open
large,
water.
yeah, like large
Yeah.
bodies of water.
As
And
opposed to just like would aquaphobia include like I don't get in pools kind of thing?
yeah,
Okay.
hmm yeah. And so this is something where, just to be clear off the top, I wouldn't say that I have like a full blown phobia like this, since that is, something that dramatically impacts your life, and I am able to like go on boats and stuff. But I was extremely anxious researching for this episode. So it is definitely something that does personally scare me.
I feel like I'm going to have to go back and re-listen. I feel like this came up in one of our early episodes.
Oh, it might
Like,
have.
just briefly, I feel like you mentioned this because I feel like this is something I weirdly knew about you, even though I don't have a lot of details.
Yes. So this is actually something that is pretty common as a fear. And a lot of people trace this back to just kind of a basic human fear of the unknown.
Sure.
Um, so there was a 2016 study by Nicholas Carlton about this fear of the unknown, and just talking about kind of the evolutionary need for humans to be scared of things that might be threatening and or hold unseen threats.
Something about our minds and bodies wanting us to survive.
Yep, and just being like, nope, we cannot do. We're not good in water. We need to live on land. Don't go in there. And they also, so someone else that I found a source for, Martin Anthony, who was a co-author of the Anti-Anxiety Workbook, just kind
Oh,
of
my
talks.
therapist literally just sent me that workbook.
Hey, well, in it you'll find out about evolutionary fears of things like deep water, and that,
Neat.
obviously humans, are programmed to fear things like heights or deep water or snakes more than things like flowers that
Mm,
are not generally threatening to us.
yes. Sometimes, though, sometimes they trick us.
They do, and there definitely can be a fear of anything, but this is something that happens to a lot of people. One of the other differences I thought was really interesting that I learned between just a general fear of water and this is that a fear of water is apparently usually triggered by like an actual incident, like,
Like I almost drowned.
yep, so
Hmm.
like almost drowned, like was in some kind of water related mishap, where deep water is something that's very much fueled by our own imaginations and kind of this sense of terror about that.
Sure.
And I know I personally have always been very nervous about specifically dark water. Like
Mm.
looking into deep water is like okay, but like I have a very clear memory of like standing on the edge of a pier and just looking down into just like black water and feeling that, creeping anxiety of like anything could be in there, anything could come out of there, and
Very
just
much the
ugh.
being a kid standing at the top of your basement stairs type
Mhm.
feeling.
Yes. And I have one memory very clear to me, which was, so my grandparents lived in Florida for I think pretty much my whole life, and we would go down and visit them. And one time we went on a sponge diving boat.
Oh, uh-huh.
which is a thing you do down there. And like you're on the boat and they opened up like a hatch in the bottom of the boat and you could
Oh.
just see the like, dark water in there and the diver just jumped down through that hatch. And I was just like it freaked him a bean as I was so scared about that.
My one of my best friends, she actually listens to the podcast, so Steph, I'm sorry I'm about to use this story of yours. But when she was little, her like mom and dad were playing like near a lake, and they threw like a ball out in the lake for their dog to go get,
Hmm.
and the dog like jumped in the water, and she didn't understand that like things didn't like disappear forever when they went into the water,
Yeah.
and so she started like scream crying because she thought her dog was gone forever.
No. It is. It's scary.
I
Ugh.
think this is the reverse of our ghost episode.
Yeah, do
Um,
you not feel this?
no, hearing you talk about this too, I almost wonder if there might be some. I wonder if there's some attachment to like our evolutionary, like where your lineage is from, or
Mhm.
something to that effect. Because I've always found myself very drawn to open water.
Mm.
Like I've always been a deep part of the ocean gal. Or like I like not being able to see the bottom of like a lake when I'm swimming or
Oh,
whatever.
wow.
I think it's very like cool and like, oh wow, like there's something, because I think it's one of the few things where like, okay, space, like
Mhm.
you and I've never been to space and probably
No.
never will be. Like it's one of the few kind of mysterious wonders that is right here and we can see it on
Yeah.
our earth. And I think that, to me, it's fascinating and I love it.
See, like I do also get fascinated by it, but it's in kind of like that like horrified fascination
Mm,
kind of way, like learning about like, all of the crazy creatures that live in like deep sea trenches and like, the
yes.
anglerfish and the creepy worms and stuff. And like I would always read about that, but it's kind of like, how people other since I'm not usually a big fan of like actual like scary movies or stuff, I feel like it's the same reason that people like scary movies is they
Yeah.
get kind of that little
Or
tingly
like it's
thrill.
true crime. Like it's true
Mhm.
crime,
True.
like prepare it's the almost like mentally preparing yourself for the worst case kind of thing.
Yes, and it was just wild because obviously I, started my research for this episode just like googling thalassophobia,
Oh
and so
no.
many I got like just the strongest anti ASMR going through like these articles and seeing pictures, and I feel that really strongly with like a lot of undersea and shipwreck photography and
Mm.
stuff like that, like photos of like the Titanic and
Oh,
footage
so
of
cool.
that. Just it gives me like such like nasty spine tingles.
Oh, see, I'm literally I look at that and it's like this beautiful, like beautifully haunting. I love it.
Ooh.
That's
Yeah,
so funny.
so it is, since it is something that's an extremely common fear, it is, represented and linked to pop culture a lot. And
Mhm.
I actually learned that a lot of people tie kind of like, obviously this is something that people have always been scared of,
Mhm.
but apparently there was like a huge spike in it after the movie Jaws.
Jaws, yes.
Yep. And I actually, just a side note, fun Jaws fact,
Yes, hit me.
is that Jaws was actually like invented the summer blockbuster. Did you know this?
Oh, no, I didn't actually.
Yeah, so like at that time, so it came out in 1975, and up until then summer was where you like dumped a movie that you didn't think people were going to like.
Mm.
Basically, like I know there are times, like I think I couldn't tell you, maybe like early spring or whatever, like there are definitely times that people release things that they don't think are going to be a huge hit.
Right, like
And
dips.
prior to this, summer was when you put kind of your like, I don't know about this movies, and people just went fucking wild for Jaws. It was the first film in history to gross over $100 million at the box office,
Jeez.
and it kind of flipped the switch that now obviously these days summer is when all of the Marvel movies come out, all of the huge movies.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense because, like, most places, especially like here, like in the Midwest, like people aren't going to the movie theater in the summer. They want to be outside because that's the only time
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
nice. So I guess it
Mhm.
makes sense, but that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but yeah, they were saying that because, so many people saw this, it was such a huge pop cultural phenomenon that, it kind of continued to cause panic in theaters and in
Yeah.
real life beaches just about this idea of, a huge shark could come jumping out of the water at any time and chomp you.
Yeah, I bet beach tourism took a hit that year.
Yeah,
There was a
right.
movie that came out, I wanted to say just maybe 3 or 4 years ago. There was a literally like a deep water, I think it might have literally been called like something to that effect.
Mhm.
And it was a very much based in this thalassophobia like fear because you don't, I mean, and that's what's scary about Jaws too, right? Like you never actually see it.
Yeah, not until the very end.
Yeah, exactly. So like I think yeah, that I mean it really becomes kind of the and that we'll get into this in another episode. But that fear of just not seeing it, like that
Yeah.
Halloween, like John Carpenter plays so much off of that later, like in the slasher genre. Like, I mean, you touched on that, but yeah, just the fear of not really, even when you can see something underwater, it's distorted. Would you ever go like diving?
I don't know that I could. Like, I and this was actually something that kind of came up when I was like thinking about different things. And one of the other things that like freaks me out super bad that is kind of connected to this, but kind of its own thing is caves. And
Mm,
especially like people who are like scuba diving in caves,
hmm.
extremely scary. And like that kind of combines both the thalassophobia and kind of like an what is it, fear, claustrophobia, like fear of being enclosed.
Yeah, that
And
I do have for
yeah,
sure.
and I kind of feel like that with diving. Like I feel like I would feel like trapped in the apparatus.
That's fair. Yeah. It's I think there's a whole other yeah level of things that come with that, but um I've been not deep sea diving, but I've
Hmm.
been diving a few times and I don't know, I find it again, I find it very peaceful. I find the
Yes.
water very comforting and I don't know, maybe I'm secretly like evolved from mer people.
You got some mer genealogy going on
Yeah.
there. Yeah, so I'm also like I am not really bothered by clear water. So
Mhm.
like when like I do find it calming like scuba diving videos of like, oh, here's all these beautiful fish swimming by and like the beautiful clear ocean. Like that doesn't scare me. It's specifically when it's like dark and I cannot see.
That's fair. I am afraid of the dark in general. So
Yeah.
that I don't think, I mean, I've never been in like dark, dark water, so I can't speak to that, but I'm sure it wouldn't be particularly pleasant.
Yeah, I don't know. I just look at it and I'm like, "Whew." And I mean, like you said, I did look and there are like so many lists of just like dark water movies, deep water movies.
Mhm.
Obviously, it does is something that we play on a lot in pulp culture. And I think you're right. There is one that's just called deep water. There's open water, the deep, the abyss, 47 meters down. So like there's just a lot of things about like being shipwrecked and being kind of trapped in water, but I would even say like I never really obviously have watched like a specific deep water movie because I find it scary. But
Sure.
there's even like moments where I was super freaked out by Jurassic World where there's like they have like the Sea World like portion of
Oh,
Jurassic Park
yeah.
and this giant horrible dinosaur like comes shooting out of the water and chomps things. I did
You
not like that.
you said this is what we've been training for.
Exactly. I'm like, no. And it was like part of the trailer. And I remember seeing it in the trailer for something else I was going to see and just being like, oh, no, I don't like it.
Mm, that's funny. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's all these like random moments or I am like we kind of said before, I definitely feel really fascinated by like shipwrecks, specifically Great Lake shipwrecks since I do live here
Mm-hmm.
on Lake Michigan and I've heard um, a good friend of mine actually runs Gothic Milwaukee, and she is a expert on all kinds of things like both haunted and creepy and tragic about Milwaukee history. And she's
Amazing.
written books about like ghosts of Milwaukee, but she also has a book about shipwrecks in the Great Lakes. And I've actually gone on, so here, there's definitely like, this is my version of a haunted house. I won't go in a haunted house, but I did go on a boat tour on Lake Michigan, during which she said shipwreck stories while I was on a boat.
That makes it very real-time horror for sure.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know, it is kind of like terrifyingly fascinating to think about that and think about all of the things that are in like big bodies of water. Like there are, shipwrecks at the base of these and all these kind of abandoned things that still live down there.
Are
And
there a lot of shipwrecks on Lake Michigan?
oh yeah.
Well,
Oh
that's
yeah.
not great.
No, Lake Michigan has a ton of shipwrecks because it gets extremely rough, like in the winter and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there are all kinds of really great stories. I do definitely recommend checking out Anna's shipwrecks book. But there's also like ferries, because there used to be a lot of ferries that ran between like Milwaukee and Chicago
Oh,
on the
sure.
lake, and there would be terrible disasters where the ferries, sink and everybody dies and all of those good things.
Jeez.
But yeah, there was a part of the tour where she was talking about like the ferry that launched from like not far and blah blah blah, and it like sheared up against a water tower and broke the legs off, and the water tower smashed into the ship,
Oh my god.
and it started going down. And as we're like floating down the Milwaukee River, she's like, and even today, so only so many of the corpses were retrieved, so we're floating over their unhallowed graves at this very moment.
Oh, how nice.
And
Well,
I'm like, whoa. But yeah, you would like that. There's a lot of like interesting, because there's obviously a lot of ghost stories
I
associated
was
with
gonna say,
those.
luckily you don't believe in
Mhm.
ghosts, but I
Yes.
would have been truly upset in that moment. Yes.
Right. You'd be upset about, talking about ghosts crawling on shore and the beaches, trying to get away from, trying to escape their shipwreck fate,
Oh,
where
poor
I'm
ghost.
just like, oh God, there are pieces of boats and dead people down there.
And anglerfish, not in Lake Michigan, but
Not in Lake Michigan, but there could be. You
we
don't
don't
know.
know.
I feel like that's the thing with like water, is you never know what's gonna be in there.
The ocean's like a box of chocolates.
Never know what you're gonna get. Yeah. So it's just something that was interesting. And we've talked about, we've never really done a like specifically personal topic, I guess. I mean, we
Yeah.
kind of have, but when I was trying to think about what I might want to talk about next, I was like, oh, like, we talked about ghosts and we talked about other things that like don't really bother me. Maybe I will bring something that actually does spook me real good.
Make you afeared.
It's just very scary. And I think it is definitely the fact that it's very much fueled by imagination is part of why it's
Mm-hmm.
specifically scary, because I do have a very active imagination.
Yeah, I could definitely see where that would like get the best. I mean, I am claustrophobic very badly. Um and if you add like dark to that, then
Mm.
that's my imagination starts going crazy. Like, what if I turned on a light and there was someone right next to me in this small space?
Ooh, yes. And this is like that, except maybe it's a shark.
I think like, you know what I think maybe with like sharks and things, like, is it scary to me? Sure. But I also think I have that moment of like, I'm not going to be able to fight it. Like,
This is true.
so like if it happens, like it'll be over quickly. I don't know. Like, it's not a good way to be, but like my brain is like, well,
Oh
oh
well.
well.
Yeah. I definitely feel that. And I would even say like I'm not even specifically afraid of sharks. Like I think that sharks do get a very bad rap thanks Jaws and other movies, and for the most part they're just doing their own thing. It's more just like the idea that anything could be down there.
Yeah, like
And
a fear of what you maybe might see that you're not expecting.
yeah, like you could see anything, or like just the whole concept of like things that like survive in pressure that's like too intense for humans to be in. I'm just like, whoa, scary. It's like a whole nother world down there, and I don't know that I like it.
Somewhere down in the depths, there's like two really weird fish doing a podcast about like they're like, oh my god, what is on land? What
Right.
if
Being
what
in
if
open air is so
it's
scary.
so scary? What if they have green hair?
Ah, you
Ah!
just never know. Uh, but yeah, this was kind of a quick one, but those were things that I wanted to share and just thought was really interesting. It was one of those things where like I've known that I've always kind of had this thing that makes me anxious and never like looked super deeply into it. So I felt a little bit like calmed by the fact that lots of other
Validated.
people, yeah, definitely a validation that I'm not the only one who's scared of the dark water. I also, this is kind of a full like side topic, but I also just get weird, like, when your brain just like tells you to do something crazy.
Yeah.
And I have that a lot around water. I used to walk by the Milwaukee River every day to go into work, and I would just be like, throw your purse in the river.
Intrusive thoughts.
Yes.
Yep.
Just be like, throw your keys off the boat. And I'm like, no, don't do that.
Why
I'm
would
like,
I
but
do
what would happen?
that? I think like it is very interesting. I don't know. Fear is an interesting thing, and like the fears that are very much based in like our survival as humans are very fascinating. That like it's kind of
Hmm.
this base thing that makes us all equal in a way.
Yeah.
We're all afraid of things that might destroy us as a culture. So it's I mean, it's definitely it's not pleasant to think about like what might be lurking beneath the surface.
Yes. And it just makes it all the more impressive that some people are like, yeah, I got to get down there.
Oh yeah, yeah. I like while I'm not particularly afraid of it, I also am not like signing up anytime soon.
Not going to go in like a little James Cameron submarine and
Nope,
go poking
nope.
around down there.
We'll we'll maybe someday get to the other side of this because my fear is like deep space. I'm on the opposite end of
Oh,
the spectrum where
yeah.
like that type of unknown freaks me out.
I
Uh,
feel that. I think that's an extremely it's like the same concept,
yeah,
just in
exactly.
the just up.
Just just up. It's like down but up.
But
Perfect.
all right. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us today. I hope if you are also afflicted with a fear of deep water, you were still able to enjoy this episode and it didn't freak you out too much. And if you are not, maybe you understand a little bit more about what all of us thalassophobic folks are so scared of. Ugh. So thanks again for listening. We love to have you. Let us know on the socials at Ghouls Night In Pod on Instagram if you are afraid of deep water. And I think I have a photo of me with the sponge diver. So maybe I'll
Ooh.
share that as a non-terrifying image to
Yes.
represent this episode.
Some
Um,
some soft thalassophobia.
Yes. So please do rate and review on your podcast app of choice. We love to hear if you're enjoying it. And if you are looking to find me, I am at Penny Snark.
And you can find me on all platforms at Midge Munster.
And stay out of the water unless you're not scared of it. And
Then you can come swim with me.
yes. And until next time,
Goodbye.
goodbye.